Tonight, we're going to have a different night. The book of Jeremiah, it's not all in chronological order. We finished chapter 20 last week, and there's a gap now between chapter 20 and 21. There's actually a 20-year gap. Jeremiah has been warning of judgment, which is really a severe discipline that God is going to bring upon the tribe of Judah, and they're going to be taken into exile in Babylon because they've turned from God to idols. Okay, this is what we've been seeing. They've been using and abusing each other. They've been allowing injustice, and exploitation of the vulnerable to prevail. And these are real serious things to God. These are themes that go all the way through the Old and the New Testament. When God looks and people are treating other people as worthless, the ultimate expression of that would be slavery. God looks at it and it's just this insane wickedness in the eyes of God, unacceptable. And so God's going to spank. He's going to spank Judah. He's going to spank his people. He's not going to let them go, as he promised, but he will chasten them long and sore. And this is to preserve them, because he's going to be faithful to keep them together and to do through them, what he planned to do. He's going to bring them back to his ways, that he might thrill them by using them in his great purpose of making God known to the entire world. So when we come to chapter 21, like I said, it's a 20-year leap forward. And the spanking in chapter 21 is underway. Okay? God, through Jeremiah, has been warning them of this spanking, and he's been patient. But you get to chapter 21, and the spanking is underway. The Babylonians are there. They're surrounding Jerusalem. They're invading the city. We're not going to wait 20 years to get into chapter 21, but we are going to wait about 8 weeks. Pastor Bob is going to do an 8-week overview of the whole Old Testament starting next week. Pastor Bob is one of the pastors on staff here. He was actually Greg Laurie's first worship leader for about 15 years, way back in the day. He wrote some songs that some of you guys probably would recognize. Behold, bless ye the Lord. And if you any old-time Christians here, all you servants of the Lord, lift up your hands. He wrote that, and he's been to Israel 58 times. Makes me exhausted just thinking about that flight, the jet lag. He has a doctorate in biblical studies, and they call it something, I forgot, some letters behind his name, but he does this overview of the entire Old Testament. He's invited to other churches to do it, and I'm thinking, why don't we have him do it here? Truth be told, I'm going to be filling in for Pastor Ed on Sunday mornings, probably for the next 8 weeks, as he continues to rest. And so Pastor Ed said, hey man, why don't you get Pastor Bob to fill in? And we're going to have worship here on Wednesday night, but it's going to be kind of almost like a college course. If you stick in there, and we're going to have downloadable handout things off of our website that correspond with each week, and you can compile them in a notebook, but you will have an amazing view of the entire Old Testament, which is the deep roots of our Christian faith. Jesus didn't come out of nowhere. He's the prophesied and long anticipated Messiah of Israel, who is also, thank God, the Savior of the entire world. And so that's what's going to happen. But tonight I want to look at a topic that I touch on every single week in our study in Jeremiah. You've heard me use the word spanking. Some preachers will say this is the judgment of God, and it is a judgment, but it's really a severe spanking that Jeremiah is warning. And so we're going to look at this topic tonight of God's discipline in our lives. And if you have your Bibles, you can open up to Hebrews 12. We're going to have the verses up also on the screens. But Hebrews 12 deals with the question of why does God allow such difficult times into our lives, seasons of incredible pain at times. What is this? Why is everything so painful? This is a common question that runs, I don't know about you, but through my mind when I'm in a season of discouragement, Now, going through difficult times, difficulties in our lives, it's not only about chastening. That's not the only reason that we find ourselves with wave after wave of, just troubles crashing into our lives. But chastening his kids is one of the purposes that God works in the difficult times that he allows us to go through. Chastening is not the only purpose, of the hardships that he allows, that God allows, but it's one of the great purposes and why he allows pain in our lives. He chastens us. We're going to talk about that. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3 through 7, we see that God also allows difficult times. He allows us to go through things so that later we can comfort other people with the same comfort we were comforted by God. As we were in our times of suffering, God makes us more able. Through pain, he shapes us and he molds us. He makes us more compassionate. Pain will either make you bitter and angry and make you smaller, or it will make you more compassionate. It'll make you more kind. It'll make you less judgmental. I was a judgmental monster when I first came to Christ. Before I was a Christian, everything, the wind was in my sails. I was very disciplined and surfing and pole vaulting and went off to college, and God broke into my life. I came to Christ, and I think the first 3 years, man, if someone was struggling with a depression or a deep discouragement, you wouldn't have to doubt your salvation. I would doubt it for you. I'd be like, did you really meet Jesus? Then why are you so down? And God's looking at me like going, I got to take you through some pain, boy. You judgmental monster, you. And indeed, God allowed incredible pain into my life and a breaking. God will break our pride and our arrogance, and he'll break that judgmental religious spirit. He will make us compassionate. He will make us merciful like him, that we might be used in a greater way, that we might become more encouraging. The Pharisees, God's not he won't leave you as a Pharisee. And I'd become a Pharisee rather quickly. Now, if you're like me, you long for the day, when all the pain and struggle is over. Well, that day's coming, but right now we're in a refinery. And it's important that we remember that our sufferings are temporary. Whatever sufferings you're going through or may go through, it's all temporary. Paul the Apostle even referred to, he said the present sufferings of this, the temporary sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. Because it's through the sufferings that God forms and shapes Christ in us. And Paul's saying one day you're going to look and say, wow, man, what God did, it's so worth all that he took me through, you know? But he said these temporary sufferings are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. The day's coming, you know, and our hearts long for that day that God revealed to John that's coming. And we see this in Revelation chapter 21:3. John says, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. This is this day that we long for, that's coming, that God promises is coming. Just like the whole Old Testament is filled with hundreds of prophecies that Christ would come, and he came and he fulfilled them. There's still future things that God says, this day is coming. God, who's been faithful to fulfill everything so far, will fulfill and bring about this day when he will dwell with man, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And there will be no more death, no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There will be no more pain. Wow, bring it on, Lord. And John says, and then he that sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, write these words, because these are true and faithful. You watch. You wait, you will see it with your eyes. This day will come about. But for now, I bring you back to this present, Paul called it this present evil age, back to the trials and tribulations that we will go through, back to the disciplining hand of God upon our lives, back to this time of his training. He's training us. It's the same concept as discipline and training. He's training us like an athlete is trained, like a soldier is trained. You know, the writer of the book of Hebrews exhorts first century Jewish believers in Christ who are complaining about the difficulties they're in. This is what is happening in the book of Hebrews. Their difficulties were due to their drifting from Christ, from their falling away from looking at him. That's what the book of Hebrews is about. These first century Jewish believers in their Messiah, after they'd come to Christ, they began to drift from looking at him. They began to fall away from looking at Jesus. And what happens when we fall away from just simply looking at him, our minds get filled with all sorts of crazy thoughts about God, about the sufferings and trials of this life. And our lives just go crazy. And so the whole exhortation in the book of Hebrews is to fix your eyes upon him. Fixing our eyes upon Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Oh, I forgot who God is. Now I see him again and I'm at peace. He's not out to get me, he's out to save me. He's not against me, he's for me. It's all a matter of keeping our eyes on him, and specifically on Jesus Christ and him crucified. Everything we need to know about God is consolidated in the cross. It's amazing. In Hebrews 12:5, notice he says, you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as sons and daughters. My son, my child, do not despise the chastening of the Lord. Notice this. Don't despise it. I used to despise it when my mom said, go to your room. We'll talk about that in a minute. I got spanked a lot as a kid, and I deserved every spanking. But I despised it. I'd be in there. It was like the end of the world, you know. It was a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old. I'd be in there putting on different layers of underwear and stuff. It was just like whatever I could do. I'd open the window so like my mom would realize the neighbors are going to hear this. Everything I could do to shield myself. I despised it. But here the exhortation is, my son, my daughter, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. I don't know how many times I've been discouraged by a rebuke, from a boss. I'm a work, man. I'm a piece of work. I know some of you were just kind of naturally compliant and, but I was, if you only knew the piece of work that I am, but I've been fired from jobs, as a youngster and kicked out of school, and it was all disrespect, and I was rebuked. And my wife even, she rebukes me. She's strong in the Lord, man. And I'm always discouraged. I get discouraged. But here, don't despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged. Don't be for childish behavior, for disrespect. These are the things that I've struggled with. And he says, for whom the Lord loves, he chastens. And he scourges every son that he receives. Notice there again, verse 5, you have forgotten. You have forgotten. One of the major reasons for the discouragement among these Jewish Christians was because they saw no reason why God would allow the sufferings they were going through. And it was just, all it was pain, and they'd forgotten the reason why God allows the pain. He said, you've forgotten. They'd forgotten the principles regarding the chastening love of God. Sometimes we can forget even the basic, reality of what this life is. I drift. I forget this is a refinery. It's not a 5-star cruise. And waking up, forgetting it's a refinery, expecting a 5-star cruise, the troubles start coming into the day, and I'm like complaining. What is this? God's like going, this is a refinery, like I've told you 1,000,000 times. And I'm like, I don't like what's happening, as if I'm on a 5-star cruise, and I've paid the top price, and I deserve the service that I've paid for. God's like going, I never said this was a 5-star cruise. I said this was a refinery. And it's interesting when you remember what it is, what God said it is, then you're like, okay, let's get on with it. And you're not surprised when the troubles crash into the day, and things start blowing up and people are weird around you. You're like, this is a test. This is a refinery. And it's amazing how much better we can respond to what comes our way when we remember what this is. How much of our discouragement can be traced back to the reality that we've simply forgotten. Hebrews 12:5, you have forgotten. You've forgotten the exhortation that speaks to you as sons, as daughters. Don't despise the chastening. Don't be discouraged when you're rebuked by him. You're going to be spanked. You're going to be rebuked because none of you are there yet. And if you think you're there, you got bigger problems than the rest of us. If you think you've arrived and you're above the need for training, you ever meet those guys? The first day, like a group of guys on the new job, or there's that one guy that thinks he's already there. That guy's going to have the biggest problems, He's going to have you can imagine a guy at boot camp looking at the commanding officer. What are you talking to me? I'm in shape. I know what I'm doing. I can shoot it. And he's just like, bro, you're going to get chewed up one side and down the other. We're here to learn. We're here. They'll break you down and build you up and teach you. We have to be teachable. Sometimes we forget who God is. We forget that God in Christ we're forgiven. Did you forget that? You're forgiven. It's already done. Not just forgiven, not just sin deleted. That's not the whole picture of what is ours in Christ. It's not just that sin is deleted, it's we've been clothed in the righteousness of Christ. Okay? Did you forget? My son, don't forget. We forget many times. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Wave after wave is breaking, and we're getting tossed, and we're going to drown, and we're going to die at sea, right? And God's like, I said I'd never leave you. We forget that he promised that he'll finish the work that he started in us. This is the ultimate question. Has God started a work in you? But you know the question that many Christians are constantly asking, the question is, why am I not finished yet? Why am I still so messed up? That's not the question. God says you're going to be a work in progress all the way until the day of Christ. So stop asking that question. How come I'm not as good as everybody else in church? And everybody else in church isn't that good. If you could only see what happens. Nobody else's marriage is perfect like you think it is. Your family has all this drama going on all the time, and the crazy aunt or the sister every family's got it going on, guys. Just this piece of information I'm not supposed to give you. The pastor's union, they might take away my card if they know I'm giving you this information, but every family, Billy Graham's family, Chuck Smith's family, every family, drama, major drama. Every marriage going through it at times. I believe every married couple, they need counseling at some point in their marriage. Jennifer and I have gotten counseling. We've hit log jams and had to go in and have a third party sit us, someone who knows what they're doing, and help and break the log jam, and then we move forward. We forget. How much we forget. This is why the one ritual that Jesus gave his church, this thing we call communion or the Lord's Supper, it's all about what? Remember. The one thing that we're supposed to do over and over again until he comes. You get baptized once. We're to take communion as often as we gather together. Some people take it every time they break bread. The early church, they did this. Take the cup. Remember. Do this in what? Remembrance of me. The one ritual he gave us to do over and over was a remembrance, because God knew that we would forget the most important thing, the central thing, the redeeming love of Christ. So he said, I not only want you to remember it like here, I want you to physically take a piece of bread, break it, put it in your mouth, chew on it, swallow it. I want you to do this physical exercise so that you radically remember it. And then I want you to take the cup and realize this is the cup of the new covenant, my blood that was shed for you. And I want you to drink it and feel it going down. And remember, my blood was shed for the remission of your sins. Remember. Because he knew we would forget. Here in Hebrews, he says, you've forgotten. Oy vey. You could hear it with Paul with the Jewish accent. Oy vey, you've forgotten. You've forgotten. You need to remember. He says there, you've forgotten the exhortation that speaks to you as sons. Hebrews 12:5, my son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you're rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges every son that he receives. I want to ask, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten that God has a purpose in the difficulties? You know, it's Peter put it this way. He said to the believers, he said, don't think it strange concerning the fiery trial that is to try you, as if something strange was happening. What is Peter getting at? We have this tendency that whenever anything gets hard, whenever anything just crashes into our lives and disrupts what we expected, our plan, the first thing we think is something is terribly wrong. And he says, no, don't think anything's wrong concerning the fiery trial that is to try you, as if something strange was happening. This isn't strange. This is the normal experience in this world, in this temporary refinery that we're all in. It's normal that things are going to break, things are going to blow up, people are going to get weird, you're going to have to be rebuked because you're not yet where you're supposed to be. This is normal. It's not strange. But we say, God, why? What did I do? You didn't do anything. This is how it is. This is the normal experience. Have you forgotten that God has a purpose for the difficulties, the pain? This isn't for nothing. Nothing is random. Your pain is not because God hates you and wants to kill you. You're like, whoa, that's kind of extreme. That's what the children of Israel said when God brought them out of Egypt through the Red Sea and they went into the wilderness and they couldn't find water for 3 days. 3 days of being uncomfortable. And they began to say, God, this is why you brought us out here, because there wasn't enough graves in Egypt, so you brought us out here to kill us because there's plenty of room to bury us. Wow. Wow. Your pain is not God hating on you. He's not trying to kill you. It's not a sign of his absence in your life. It's rather a sign of his intimate involvement in your life. The pain, the spanking. You've forgotten the exhortation that speaks to you as sons. This is a quotation from Proverbs chapter 3, if you want to do some further study, verse 11 and 12. We're reminded that God's chastening should never be taken as a sign of his rejection. Listen, it's rather a sign of his treating us as dearly loved children. The only kids that I have ever spanked are my own kids. The only children I've ever spanked. I don't spank kids that are not mine. I don't spank my kids anymore because they're beyond that little stage. Now, if you want to get their attention, you take their phone away or electronics or something, and that's like worse than the worst spanking you could ever get. The only reason I ever did spank my kids was because of my deep, deep love for them and my desire for their ultimate thriving. And I'm just a flawed human dad. Have you forgotten the exhortation that speaks to you as sons and daughters of God? My son, my daughter, don't despise the chastening of the Lord, neither be discouraged. You know, we shouldn't be surprised that we need chastening. Some people are like, what is this chastening thing, you know? Only the most deluded person would claim that they're beyond the need of God's correction in their lives. And I've met people like that. If you endure chastening, verse 7, God deals with you as with sons, as opposed to slaves. He deals with you as sons. For what son is there, and this implies daughter, whom the father does not chasten? But if you are without chastisement, you've never been spanked by God, he says everybody's is a partaker of this, then you're illegitimate. That's the bad sign if God never rebukes you, never chastens you. You think of, it's a nightmare when you're somewhere and you're at a restaurant or something and some kid is just screaming, throwing his food, Some kids are naturally compliant. I mentioned this before. I have a sister. My sister Elizabeth. She was spanked one time. My little sister Liz would come at night when it was time for bed. She would grab my mom's hand and say, "Mommy, it's time for me to go to bed." And she would drag my mom to her room. With me, it was like this knock-down, drag-out ordeal every night, Liz got spanked one time. She lied about something. I think it was she went to a Kenny Rogers concert or something, and I don't know what it was. She's into country music. And I was spanked 2 or 3 times a week for 6 years straight. Different kids are different and have different needs for discipline. For defiant little selfish punks like I was. Think of how damaging. I think about how, and my mom and my dad disciplined me. I mean, I was a thief. I was a liar. I'm talking breaking and entering. I broke into my 6th grade classroom. I went at 4 in the morning. I'm in 6th grade. I get up at 4 in the morning. I go over to Jimmy Campbell's house. We walk together in the dark to my elementary school in Thousand Oaks, Madrona Elementary School. This is back in the, how old are you in 6th grade? I was born in 1961. It was the late 60s, early, like maybe 1970. There's no alarms on anything. There was the window panes, you could pry these window panes, the little aluminum window pane. We pried the window panes off, we went in. Every day I'm watching the teacher give this is the irony. Every day in class, someone would get a handful of Baby Ruth candy bars for being a good citizen. And I never got the award, but I wanted the candy. It was like this Price Club bag of, the teacher would open the cupboard, and I saw this big bag of Baby Ruth bars. And I never got one because I didn't deserve one because I was a little punk. But I'm going to get me one. And me and Jimmy Campbell, we broke into our 6th grade class at 4 in the morning. We stole the bag of Baby Ruth. We were eating all this chocolate. We hid the rest in the bushes. And then we went to class that day. We're watching this. She goes to get the award for the good citizen, And that's just one of 100 stories. I'd be in jail right now if my parents did not spank me when they found out what I was doing, Think of how damaging it is to leave a child in a state like I was in. You know what? One of the major ways it's damaging that when parents don't discipline their kids is that nobody wants to be around that child. And here's the damage, is that little kids can pick up. They pick up, they feel stuff more than they actually process stuff in their brains. And if there's a kid that's like, every time he's around, he's just out of control and he's just, there's always a vibe of, I wish this little brat would go away. And that damages the kid. But you discipline that behavior, that attitude. It's even an attitude. Parents should discipline kids for an attitude. I learned most of this from my wife. She was disciplined by our pastor, because that's her dad, and Ray Lynn. And I was like, what, we're going to discipline our kids for bad attitudes? My wife's like showing me in the Bible, like a rebellious spirit, And our kids, like, they would have been as horrible as I was, But instead, everywhere we've gone with our kids, because of the discipline that my wife kind of led me And I was like on board, let's do it. This is God's plan. But our kids' whole life, everywhere they go, people are like going, it's such a delight to have you around. Do you know what that does to a kid's heart and soul and self-image? When everywhere they go, people are like, man, you're such a cool kid, Today, the modern thinking, the kind of the liberal mindset. Now let me say this, because this is important. God gave this little padded area here in the back end. A little sting in pain. You don't hit him in the head with your hand. You don't hit him in the back with a piece of wood. I mean, what the heck? We're not talking about that. We're talking about associating a bad behavior or a terrible attitude that's going to wreck their lives with a little sting on the butt. And then you're like going, I don't want the sting on the butt. I'm going to have a good attitude. As a little child, you shape the kid like this. No damage. My mom didn't damage me. I love my mom. In fact, parents who discipline the kids know the love when the parents there's a boundary there. It's like, I care about you, that we're not going to let you have this crap attitude and this type of behavior. And so I just wanted to say that, because when you say discipline, like all sorts of stuff comes into people's heads. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But if you endure chastening, verse 7, God deals with you as sons and daughters, members of his own household, heirs of his, who will inherit everything he has. You're not a stranger, you're not a slave, you're a son, you're a daughter. You have the family name and all the inheritance is yours. This is the idea here. But many people have not had a loving human father in their lives, you might say. Some of you. 4 out of 10 babies born last year in America were born to unwed mothers. Many dads are dropping the ball. It's a sad reality. Many of those whose dads were abusive or absent have expressed. I've even heard it in counseling in my office. People say, I have no way to associate or relate to God as a loving father. Let me say this, even those people that your dad was a total, I don't even want to say the word. You can still receive the love of God the Father. None of us, by the way, have had a perfect human father, because there's no one that does anything perfect. By the way, if you're human, you're imperfect. You blow it. And we're careful to let our kids know that. We're careful to confess our failures to our own kids. We don't want to be that Christian family where it's like mom and dad, like they were total hypocrites. Our kids are just like, man, our mom and dad need grace, and they're not acting like they don't, and we need to give each other grace. We try to live in reality. But we all know by intuition what a good father is. So even if you didn't have one that was decent even, we all know what one is. Even the person that said, my dad sucked at being a dad. He wasn't even around. He would yell at me and beat my mom, and he was gone out womanizing, and you're referring to some standard of a dad that you intuitively know that he should be, and that's why you say, my dad sucked. Because you intuitively know the standard of what he should have been. Listen, well, God is that perfect father. And he has given us that intuition of what a good father is. Don't you love that song? You're a good, good father. That's who you are. It's who you are. God deals with you as sons. If you endure this chastening, if you endure it, it's hard. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. If you endure it, if you stop despising it, and you cease from being discouraged every time he rebukes you. He's like, look, I'm training you. I'm making you into someone who's going to thrive, and you're going to have a full life. If you endure this chastening, God will deal with you as sons. It means you're going to get the inheritance. That's what it means in this old school context here. God's correction is not to punish us, not to make us pay for our sins. That's not what chastening is. It's not punishment. It's not making you pay for your sins. Your sins were paid for once and for all on the cross. God's correction in our lives, his chastening, is motivated only by his love, not his justice. And when he's chastening you, listen, he's not angry at you. He's not angry. There is no more wrath of God, even against your failures. It's all been poured out on the cross. Jesus said, let this cup, Jesus knew what he was going to experience and he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, if it's at all possible, if there's any other way, let this cup, the cup of the fury of God's wrath against sin, he drank it all the way down. There's nothing left in the cup. There's nothing left in it. The difficulties, the struggles, the storms that will come and beat against your life, God is not angry at you. He will use it many times to discipline, to correct. And by the way, again, when we chasten our kids, it's so important that you send them to their room. Listen, not for a head trip for them, but so that you can cool down. When we discipline our children, it's not about the parent, it's about the child. And a lot of times it's like when my child does something, breaks something, it's like you're angry. I'm not going to discipline. Go to your room. Why go to your room? Because I need to cool down. Because when I discipline you, I'm going to be calm. We're going to talk about what's happening. We would ask our kids, now, why are you going to get a spanking? It has to be clear. You don't want there to be a confusion in their minds. And I would always tell my kids, like, we got to deal with this. And you connect a little pain to that attitude or that behavior, and you're calm. You don't go in there and smack them and walk out all angry. No, you cool down. Because when God's chastening us, he's not angry. He's chastening us for our good, so that we'll thrive and be blessed. He's not angry. And so we're to reflect God to our children like this. And in fact, you're so calm that after the application there of the Board of Correction to the Glutamus Maximus there, we would sit and I would hold my kid and just hold him, and I would just reassure them of my love for them and how I hate doing this. I do. That saying, it hurts me more than it's going to hurt. I dreaded it. But the Bible says he who spares the rod, he who doesn't discipline their child, actually hates their child. You let them go out into life with that stink attitude, and everybody around them doesn't want to be around them. You're part of the damage of that child. You see? We get all this wisdom from God, how God deals with us. He's not angry in his correction. He's not angry at all. If you're without chastisement, you're illegitimate, he says. You're not even sons. You don't belong to him if you're not experiencing this chastening, because God chastens. He chastens those that he loves. The spanking from God, the pain, is not a signal of his wrath and rejection. He's not out to kill you because there weren't enough graves in Egypt. That's crazy thinking. Okay? But it's a sign. His spanking is chastening. These painful seasons, it's a sign of his involvement and his love, his passion for our thriving, for our growth. This is what it is. You know, if God ignored our sin and allowed us in those to go on with these destructive attitudes or behaviors without any wake-up call with pain, if he left us without any correction, that would be a sign of his wrath, of his rejection. That's what the writer here is saying. You know, human fathers may be distracted by their own sin from disciplining their kids, but God's not distracted. He's intimately involved. And that means many times we're in pain. That's a good sign, something to be thankful for, not to complain about. Furthermore, we had human fathers who corrected us, verse 9, and we paid them respect. I respected my dad, man. When I got in trouble during the day, many times my mom would say, wait till your dad gets home. And I was like, oh no, my dad. My dad was funny though, because many times he'd take me back in the room and he would hit his own leg and he'd tell me to yell. My dad was a softie. My mom's the one, you know, you could hear the belt clearing her belt loops, and I was like, oh no. My dad did spank me a few times, but many times he was like, okay, just get ready to yell. He hit his own leg. That probably prolonged some of my bad behavior right there. You know. We had human fathers who corrected us. We paid them respect. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of spirits and live? The answer is yes, we should. He's good. He loves us beyond our comprehension. He knows what he's doing. And we know that what he's doing is for our thriving, for our well-being. For they, indeed, for a few days, the days of our childhood, these human parents, indeed, for a few days, for a short season, they chastened us as seemed best to them. But God does this for our profit, that we may be partakers of his holiness, that we might become like him. You know, respectful, compassionate, merciful, kind. This is what he's working in us. He's making us like him. Human fathers, even with the best intentions, they can only chasten us imperfectly because they don't have perfect knowledge. Sometimes parents will spank their kids for something they didn't do, but they're sure that the kid's lying. That happens. But God knows what he's doing. He sees everything perfectly. And next, the writer of the Hebrews exhorts us to look to the results of the chastening more than the immediate and painful process. That's what he says next. Look to the results of the chastening, not so much focused on the painful process that you're in. Now, no chastening seems joyful for the present, but painful. Is that where you're at maybe right now? Nevertheless, afterwards, it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those that have been trained by it. You know, it's a beautiful thing to see your child know how to hold themselves and respect authorities and to have self-control when they just want to let someone have it and give them a verbal, and you can see it, and there's like, because that child's going to thrive. That child's going to thrive. Man, if my parents left me, I told Mr. Rokangas in 6th grade, I don't even want to tell you what I told him. I got kicked out of school. And then later, I told my employer in college, I was welding computer cables to make money in college, and my boss said something to me, and I told him to hold his horses. That was light compared to what I told Mr. Rokangas. And my boss fired me. He said, "You're fired." And it broke me. And there was a Christian guy. And he could see God's hand in my life. And I was broken. And he told me, he said, if you have that type of attitude, you will get fired over and over again. You'll never be able to build anything in your life. So my parents disciplined me. My dad kind of backed off it a little. It prolonged my bad behavior and my attitude, but it was that Christian owner of that computer cable company. Something happened at that point. Because he sat with me and he rebuked me and he warned me. And I broke. I was in tears. And I didn't know, but I wasn't faking it. I was really broken. And he said, you know what? Take a week off and then you come back. You can work. You can continue working. And since then, I can't think of any other incidents. 19 years old, and my life has been built and filled ever since. What a blessing. Don't look at the painful process. Don't look at the painful process so much, but what this will yield in your life. Be focused on that and be actually thankful. Be thankful. God's training us. He's training us. And so he gives an application, and we'll close with this. He says, therefore, strengthen the hands that hang down and the feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet so that what is lame may not be dislocated, but rather healed. It's almost like a coach or a military officer here saying, get up. Let's get on with this. Having given these exhaustive reasons here to be strong in the Lord and to put off the discouragement of the hardships and the pain that we go through, remembering God loves you. This isn't God against you. This is God for you. The exhortation is, so get up. Get up. Strengthen the hands that are hanging down, the feeble knees, your feet that are not pointed in any direction. Knowing what you know now, what I've just reminded you of, the things that you had forgotten that had you all just discouraged. That's the description of where they're at. And he says, so straighten your feet out. Lift up your hands. Straighten your legs out. Move forward now with this knowledge, now that you remember. God is going to spank, and we're going to see this not 20 years from now, but eight weeks from now. We're going to see this severe spanking begin in Judah. And it's his love for them. And it's not just his love for them, it's his love that's going to come through them to you and I. This is what it is. This is the big picture of what's happening there in Jeremiah. This is the big picture of what's happening in your life and a lot of the pain that you've been going through. Remember these important things that you may have forgotten, and get up. Get up, because God has so much. He has so much ahead of you. So much good planned for you. So get up. Father, we thank you in the name of Jesus. We thank you, God, for revealing these things in your heart to us, for dialing us in. And we pray that our minds would be filled with truth, with the truth of what's happening, of who you are, what you're doing. Lord, that we would not interpret the pain of this life, the struggles, the storms. We would not interpret them in ways that cripple us and keep us so discouraged, but we would interpret it according to reality, according to the truth, and get up and move forward. Lord, I thank you for your incredible patience with me. Thank you for the discipline that my parents did. Thank you for Mr. Rokangas kicking me out of school. For that cable company owner that rebuked me that day. Thank you for my wife that won't let me be the pathetic child that I can be when it's getting really crazy. Thank you for Pastor Ed speaking into my life. Brian Newberry, people through the years that have rebuked me. Lord, that The kisses of an enemy are deceitful, but the rebuke of a friend are faithful. Lord, we praise you that you're that friend. You're that good Father. And so, Father, help us all to get up now and to move forward into the good things that you're training us for. In Jesus' precious name we pray, and everybody who agreed said out loud together, amen. Amen. God bless you.